So the previous video I did on how God cannot have free will. I looked at it from 2 points of view. One, God's characteristics of omniscience, omnipotence and omnibenevolence would lead God to be confined and constrained by its own nature. And secondly, God's divine foreknowledge of all future events would mean God's predictions about its own activity and behavior would mean it could not act contrary to its own predictions about itself. So God couldn't veer from a path that it had set itself on, both in terms of its own nature and its own predictions. Therefore, God does not have libertarian free will. In other words, God is some kind of divine robot, an automaton existing unerringly, immutably, wherever it exists. Okay, God doesn't have free will. God is a divine robot. The question is, where does that leave you and lead you if you're a theist who believes that God is love? And I think the idea that God is love is hugely problematic for the theist, for the apologist, for the theologian, because I don't know what it means to say God is love. In the sense, I don't know what it would mean to say my laptop is love. My laptop does what it's programmed, and apart from when what are you doing, laptop? I don't understand. You're just zeros and ones. You should be doing exactly what I tell you to. But assuming it is following some kind of deterministic algorithm, a laptop can't love me, and I shouldn't really have much rational justification for loving a laptop in the sense of an actual relationship. You know, I love my partner, but she doesn't know everything in the world. She doesn't predict the future indubitably. She's not all powerful. She can't send me to hell, and she can't bribe me with heaven. And so that loving relationship, even though it may exist in a deterministic framework, is a very different kettle of fish. We are two entities who I would argue live under the illusion of free will. We operate our daily activities, even though, you know, I know rationally libertarian free will does not exist on a daily basis. I think we operate as if it does, broadly speaking. When it comes to talking about things like crime and punishment and policies and these long-term decisions, then I will take my free will skepticism into account, and I will think accordingly, and I will decide that certain policies and certain things should happen as according to that paradigm. But when my kids do something that really annoys me, I get angry, even though they're always going to do what they're going to do in that situation because they are who they are in the situation they are in. So it's very difficult to extricate ourselves from this scenario of free will skepticism, or from libertarian free will, to take us out of that and live in some kind of perpetual skepticism of that, even though that is accurate. Because, and this is what the philosopher P.F. Strawson called your reactive attitudes. We attach praise and blame so easily. It's such a part of our psyche that ditching that is almost impossible. So we might as well believe in free will, or have this kind of folk understanding maybe, because it's intrinsically linked to our psychology. So to return to God then, God is love, and we are expected to have a loving union with God. And you hear about this with loads of theists say, oh, I love God with all my heart. And, you know, it's this idea that theists have this daily loving union with this deity. And I just can't understand it. I can't understand it because this deity appears pretty imaginary to me anyway, and you're appealing to this kind of comfort blanket that exists in a different dimension and sometimes you might have the feels and whatnot, but essentially you are being asked to love something that you really don't know that well. Like, it's hard enough loving humans on Earth, with all our day-to-day activity. I suppose really what you're doing is you're loving an ideal, this ideal of perfection, but it's nothing more than an automaton doing what it has to do as according to what it has predicted of itself and its nature. And so therefore, why should you love that? What I don't understand, other than to get to heaven and to avoid hell. I don't understand how you can love such an entity and why you would love such an entity. It seems to me really rather incoherent. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on this, particularly if you're an ex-believer or currently a theist. How do you love such a God? What is the basis of your loving union, and how does it manifest itself? And what does it really mean to say, I love God, or I love Jesus? Are you just having... I know it's a bit pejorative, obviously, to say you're having a relationship with an imaginary being, right? Because for those people, it's not imaginary. But it's not there, and it's not actually answering you back in a way that a partner would answer you back, and you're not having discussions in a way that you're coming to understand this other entity. When I discuss stuff with my partner and I get to know how she feels about things, and I love the way she is and the way that she does things for me on a daily basis, because we're finding each other out and we're living in this coexistent relationship that's meaningful on a daily basis. It's such a step away from this idea of loving this abstract entity that you might have the feels is doing things on a daily basis, but in any pragmatic sense is just, largely wishful thinking. I don't know. Anyway, I don't think that I think that God not having free will invalidates the idea that you can have a meaningful and rational loving relationship with God. Given God's other characteristics as well, and the idea that God knows everything and has created everything, and I am doing exactly what God knows I'm going to do anyway. This is just, I'm living out this clockwork existence in line with God's own predictions about how the world would turn out, given he has omniscience and designed and created this world in order that it manifests in the way it does. Loving that thing it's just weird. I don't know. Anyway, question everything, and please like and subscribe, and I would be really interested in your comments on this one, because as you can tell, I mean, I don't script my talks, right? I just talk out the top of my head, but this is something I find really interesting, and I'm just struggling to get my head around it. So, your comments would be really useful. Anyway, take care, stay safe.